Agree.
His job tonight is to say agree, okay, it's not Steve's job. Can I agree the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 15th of September 2016?
Agree.
Record. Thank you. I've been notified of the following apologies: Councillor Guildford, Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Wayne Howard and Councillor Bramble. Are there any more apologies?
Councillor Deanna Edden sent her apologies, knowing that she's not a member of the committee, but she would like it known.
Okay, Deanna Edden, apologies noted as well. Thank you. Declarations of members' interest, declare them now or at the time of the item on the agenda. Are there any there now? No, thank you. The first substantive item this evening is community culture and leisure issues. Ageing well in Daventry District, 2017-2021. I declare my interest now. I hand over to Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chairman. Ageing well, I think that's something we'd all aspire to, don't you? We'd all like to age well. Well, Ageing Well strategy, we previously discussed this. The draft strategy consultation took place over a 6-week period. We now have before us the recommendation that the Ageing Well 2017 to 2021 strategy be adopted. I'd just like to note to you all that a total of 27 stakeholders were engaged. Pleased to see that the Daventry District Forum played a major role. This was formerly known as DOF, Daventry Over 50s Forum. This was started several years ago by the District Council, and I worked with Tim Campbell on the project to get it started. It now stands on its own 2 feet, but the district still offers support, and I think that the forum is a worthwhile contribution to the elderly population. When you look at the strategy itself, pages 31 to 34 outline what is currently being done and what is also being looked at in the future. This is a comprehensive strategy. It outlines this council's aspiration for the elderly person's agenda, and after all, I actually qualify, and dare I say it might also involve some of you in the future. So I would ask you to support this recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
A long way hence, I should add.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Any comments and questions? Councillor Lomax.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Chairman, not being a member of the committee. But just 2 comments that I'd like to make about it. I welcome the report and the strategy, which I think is very well done. But I do think there are some omissions. And the omission that I think there is in relation to publicity of what is actually happening. For instance, I'll quote the health walks. We used to be advised of health walks, which meant that we could then pass on that information within our parishes. But that no longer happens. And local courses for education, again, is not well publicised. Now, I don't think that's a fault of DDC, but I think it's something which perhaps we could do something to enable. The other comment that I would make is that in the action plan, of course, there is a lot of informal care and support to elderly people, particularly in rural areas. Well, it used to be families, but that's long gone as families become more dispersed. However, I just wonder if perhaps there ought to be some consideration perhaps given to carers.
Okay. You want to say something, Steve? Councillor Oswald didn't have hand up or not?
No,
sorry.
they did have a walk at my book.
Yeah. Councillor Ritchie?
The one word that seems to arise on doorsteps of least in areas that I visit with older people is bungalows, or bungalows and first and ground floor flats. Yet I think I'm right in saying the word bungalow doesn't actually appear in the document. I just wonder if there's something that it would have been happier if there had been a, an explicit reference to the, certainly a sense I come across in parts of Daventry, that the type of accommodation that people from the region need, when perhaps there may be a couple and just one has lost mobility. We all want to find bungalows or houses in which we don't have staircases to negotiate. And I just wonder, I would have been happier if there had been a sort of target somewhere in the report about what might be done about that.
Okay, noted, Councillor Richard, we'll come back to that in a minute. Any other points? Do you want to come back to anything said by Owen?
Well, I would say I think some of the points that Catherine raised, I fully understand where she's coming from, and I think when we look at communication on things that we lay on to the elderly, that's something we can look at perhaps in the future.
It's a recommendation tonight, so we've got time
Yeah.
for council before we actually adopt it.
Yeah.
So we could make amendments between now and council if you feel that's the right way forward to consider it.
So, and again, I would refer to Maria on the business. Really, when we look at bungalows, I understand again the council where she's coming from, because we have to provide accommodation for the elderly, and again, that's something that really should be looked at in some ways from a planning angle.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. So, Simon Bowers first.
Thank you, Chairman. Two comments really. On page 20 of the document, as you pointed out, there is a reference to bungalows, and that's in the context of the Council's Affordable Housing SPD, or sorry, Housing SPD, is it?
Yes.
Which does indeed contain a range of policies intended to make sure that the different types of housing we need, including the level 4 housing policy, is addressed. And likewise, the second level would have gone down, refers to the strategic housing plan, which again seeks to ensure those housing is done.
Thank you for that clarification, Simon. Anything from you, Maria, on that? So far? No, that's fine, thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Evans-Smith.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak. As you mentioned a lot of villages, and for example, in one of my villages in Maysby, they are trying to do all by themselves with the support of Tim Cantwell, because he has helped. Gymnastic for the elderly, but they are going to speak with their GPs. It's people who have no mobilities or very limited limit. So they will go to the village. They are going. 12 people are doing that, and so it's help get loneliness and also GP. What they think that GP should refer. Also in that program, in the document we never refer to the. We are a green county, and we don't refer to the well-being to gardening. And National Garden Scheme is in the 4, and they say that older people and people who are bereaved now have community where they go and help gardening, because even if they are kindergartners, they like to go to a communal garden so they can share their problem. So could we make sure that we also engage the National Garden Scheme, the National Scheme, and they are very at the upfront of the well-being agenda.
Thank you for that, Cecile. Any other comments, Councillor Paul?
Yeah, thank you. I would ask Simon Bovey and Alan if, just to remind me, I think we made provision within the Joint Core strategy going forward for elderly with the various SUs.
It would be a feature of any big new development to have proper address of the various community needs, including elderly people.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paul. I think those comments, observations have been noted, and also this paper will come back to Council in a few weeks. So you have to set the recommendation? Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Hills. We now move on to strategic planning issues. Housing implementation strategy, Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. Members present may well, and others present, may well remember that in July we recommended that the draft housing implementation strategy go out for consultation. That consultation has now taken place. There have been some good responses from 2 different parishes, which is very encouraging that they're taken an interest in this. Most of the responses really, though, relate to planning matters and are more relevant to questions on the Part 2 plan and any future housing land availability studies and reports. The adoption of this strategy is a requirement of the National Planning Policy Framework, and it's an action plan, not a development plan, as some may have assumed it was. So it's been a healthy process of engagement. There are a couple of points I need to point out. On page 54, for example, number 13, response 13, brain, the core strategy requirement is not a ceiling. That's about, rather than an absolute figure, so it's not a ceiling. And then a real howler of a typo on page 77. If I could find it. Page 77, response 21, Southern and Regional Development Regional Development Limited. If you look at the Council's reply, it says, this is not accepted. The end of the PF refers to meeting the objectively past housing needs of regions. That should be assessed.
Thank you for that clarification.
Well, it's gone. So there's those two items. Now, we are going to be doing quarterly monitoring reports on targets for this housing implementation study. As far as the gypsies, travellers and travelling show people, that policy is concerned, that will have to be revised in the light of information to come from the latest assessment of need. I believe we're up a small amount, half a dozen for pitches and down a small amount for plots. So the final report's not yet received on that. And there'll be separate engagements with the Borough Council, etc., over Northampton-related development. So that's that. So the recommendation is, and I will read it out, that the proposed changes to the housing implementation strategy in responses as set out in Appendix A be approved. The factual information about the level of need for gypsies, travellers and travelling show people be replaced with revised information from the latest assessment of need. That further minor editorial changes be made to the housing implementation strategy to reflect the fact that the document will be in its final adopted form and that the revised housing implementation strategy be adopted.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor James. We have all recommendations committee. First of all, any comments or questions? Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. It just relates to the recommendation, item 2, concerning the gypsy travellers. In section 4, on the information of the last paragraph, it mentions the Northampton Borough Council, South Northampton Council, Wellingborough, that you're in discussions with. Are you talking to Kettering as well in relation to the gypsy side?
Yes, Councillor August talking to Kettering. He's not here tonight, obviously. So Councillor Smith.
Well, unfortunately, with catering, they have postponed. We have had one meeting, so.
I mean, Richard August, communicating with them, we seem to be ahead of the game in that respect. Obviously, I said to Richard only a couple of days ago that he really should wait for them to come back to us. Obviously, he's been chasing them, but really, it's for them to come to us now. So,
I just wondered whether they were part of the...
We open our channels to them, it's up to them to actually make the effort as well. Councillor Smith.
Yes, speaking about Wellingborough and Kettering or Corby, when with the CTU, they monitor all the illegal encampment, and it's quite clear that Wellingborough this year and Northampton have had a number. Daventry, we have the odd one, but Wellingborough, due to the lack of stopping place and emergency, they have had a major problem this year.
Thank you.
And I hope we don't have a problem like that in Daventry.
Well, let's hope not. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, you have to set the four recommendations. Thank you. The next item under the strategic planning is changes to neighbourhood development planning approvals. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. This is in response to the government's requirement of applications for neighbourhood areas to be approved fairly quickly. In other words, the speed is thinking about dates and so on. And I might say a few words before we get into this item that we've done exceptionally well here in Daventry District. So far, 23 neighbourhood areas have been visited, including one neighbourhood forum. That's Charlotte. 4 currently at or have been at regulation consultation stage: Crick, Charwell and Wilford and Woodford. That's the stage when the parish carry out a consultation on the draft plan. 2 are at examination, that's Braunston and Whelan. 2 are going to referendum on December the 1st, Malton and Brixworth. And 5 have already been made, that's West Haddon, Spratt, Kilsby, Barby and Lumley and Flore. And all of our referendums have been conducted within the 56 days specified by government. So we've done exceptionally well in Daventry District.
I think the turnout's been very good on the
Yes.
referendum so far.
So this particular item is about speeding up the process. Presumably there have been some local authorities that have been less than enthusiastic. But anyway, what it means is if you look at the recommendations, number 1, that in response to the government's requirement, applications for neighbourhood areas be approved where they relate to a whole parish. The business manager is delegated the power to so designate. So that's applications where the neighbourhood area is coterminous with the parish. Then that's delegated to the business manager to designate the area. Recommendation 2, which I'll explain, that's regarding neighbourhood forum applications. The council will continue to determine the applications there following the initial consideration of the strategy group, where the timescale required by the regulations permits this, and recommendation 1 doesn't apply because we're talking about forums there. If that fails, then it's like a cascade of decision-making processes. Strategy group is delegated to the function of determining applications where the timescale requires by the regulations permits this, and 1 and 2A do not apply. So in that case, strategy group actually made a decision. And finally, C, the business manager is delegated the function when recommendations 1, 2A and 2B do not apply. Now, that's about actually designating a neighbourhood forum. The remainder of it, of the recommendation, concerns the decision on the examiner's recommendations, where agreement cannot be reached with the parish council on the day. You have, I think it's 5 weeks in which you can arrange a date with the parish council. And I suppose most of them are absolutely compliant, might be a dozen. But where it cannot be, the following arrangements apply. And recommendation A, council will continue to make the decision on the neighbourhood plan or order following initial consideration of strategy group, where the timescale permits. Strategy group is delegated the function, making the decision on the neighbourhood plan or order, where the timescale required by the regulations permits this, and 3A doesn't apply. So in default of the council, strategy group can then do it. And then C, if strategy group is unable to do it, then the course, we can have an extraordinary meeting of strategy group. I suppose that might be a date, say, in August or something, where timing to get a strategy meeting is not going to happen, but you might get a few members for it, you can make the decision. And then finally, if it all fails, the business manager, in consultation with the strategic planning portfolio holder, is delegated the function of making a decision on a neighbourhood development plan or order when none of the others are in a position to do so. I hope I don't have to make that decision. It might be a difficult one. So it is really about a cascade of decision making to speed things up.
Yeah, I think we're all welcome that as well, actually.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
And that's about it. I don't think I need to read the recommendation again.
We've just done that,
Pretty much.
Nice try though.
I know. I found it extremely confusing, this. To separate, I don't have to read it through, go through it again. But I get it. So that is the recommendation.
Thank you, Steve. That's it, James. Thank you, Steve. The three recommendations there. The business manager could be busy, although quite, depending on what happens. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Chester.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I've been following a debate in Westminster earlier on the bill that's passing through Parliament at the moment, the Neighbourhood Planning Bill. And it's been quite clear from that Daventry is very much in the forefront in that many areas, many local authorities, as hinted at by my colleague here, have been dragging their feet on this, and in fact some take months to make the decision, having had the referendum, that the plan should be made. I think we do that within 48 hours, possibly 24 hours. And I think that I would like to put on record that that's to be commended, because that's something that no one can point the finger at us for.
I think we all agree that as a group and also other members. Thank you, Chancellor. Are there any other comments or questions? Are you happy to agree the recommendations before you?
Agreed.
Thank you. The last one, Councillor James, is yours as well, which I think was raised as a question at full council last week. The Rugby Borough Council's publication draft local plan.
Yes, this item concerns our response to Rugby Borough Council draft local plan. Most of you should have in front of you a map which shows...
It's very helpful actually, it's big plan.
And it's in colour.
Right. Well, basically, the council officers consider the Rugby Borough's draft plan on SAP, as shown in Appendix 3. Now, the reason for that, predominantly, is because of the allocation of a site for about 1,500 dwellings, just off the A45, opposite the Young Offender Institution, etc. In an area which Rugby hasn't paid an awful lot of attention to over the years, I understand. And that comes about as a result of having to drop, or deciding to drop, an allocation of land adjoining Coventry, which would of course have been in the green belt of Coventry. This isn't green belt land as such. And it's going to be roughly about 2/3 bigger than a similar sort of scheme at Morsley near Kettering.
That's right.
Which is like a huge Grange Park type estate out in a semi-rural area. It's going to be something like that, which they consider to be sustainable and all the rest of it. Unfortunately, they haven't really taken into account the effect that that might have on this particular our district as far as traffic is concerned. Now, local members will know of all of the rat runs available to drivers in that locality, and quite a number of those villages, and I take it much wider than that, much going right across to Derft and beyond. Quite a number of those villages are not suitable for a lot of traffic going through. They're causing real problems. The STA, or Strategic Traffic Assessment, which they've carried out, doesn't extend that far down the A45 to the Daventry district to show the effects there at all. So it is deficient in that respect. The other concern from the officer's point of view is that there isn't insufficient evidence on the build-out rate. For example, they're talking about having a 2-entry primary provided after the 25th house is built, which we would love that if it applied to us and our requirements of schools, but it's totally ambitious and probably unsubstantiated by any realistic assessment. So there's concern there. But nevertheless, I know that members, particularly those who represent wards within easy reach of Army, will have their concerns about this. And this question was actually on the agenda, if you remember, at full council last week. So I won't take up a lot of your time, except to say that our duty has been done. A representation has been made that we consider it unsound, and we've outlined the reasons for considering it unsound. There is ongoing consultation with the officers and Rugby Council, between the officers and Rugby Council, and correspondence. More material will be published on the Rugby website over the next couple of weeks or so. From Rugby's point of view, they have only a 3.8-year land supply. So you can see why they've chosen something like this. Provide a lot of houses and an easy one-off, as it were. But nevertheless, it is about, well, Morsley is 900 dwellings. This is 1,500. So
there's another village actually.
Yes. So I'll just say the recommendation, the resolve resolution. The draft consultation response set out in Appendix 3 to Rugby Council draft local plan is approved.
Thanks to you, Councillor James. Council observations, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. A couple of comments first. Disappointed that Councillor Pritchard is not here, having made a submission at full council, and it falls within distance or throwing distance of his, and not even making an apology. However, I absolutely commend Simon Ballard and in particular Tom James for an absolutely excellent report. There's a couple of words that jumped out at me on page 114. Do you consider the plan to be unsound? Because it is not. There are 2 or 3 bullet points, and Tom there has just said justified, and I think that's absolutely bang on. There are lots of points I'm not going to go through. No employment opportunities. It's not clear on what the impact would have on the surrounding roads, which Councillor James has already said. The rat runs through to Derft, the 4,000 houses there. But I think our submission says it all, and in particular page 117 to enable the council to articulate its concerns regarding the strategic transport investment, particularly that it does not address impacts on parts of Daventry district. I'm sorry to repeat what David has already said, but I think our officers have done an excellent job.
That's Councillor Warren.
It's just an observation, really. It concerns the comments or concerns concerning the rat running. Should this project go forward, which really you're going to have to negotiate with the highways to get mitigation sorted out. And my experience over at Moulton with the A43 and trying to get some form of mitigation, you know, from the various villages that are going to be, you know, involved with this, is a real problem. They're starting next week on the dual carriageway of the 43, and we've been promised in the area that highways will contact the villages and the parish councils for mitigation for rat running. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And they're starting next week. So, you know, we're going to be in that kind of a mess in that area very shortly. And my concern is, you know, if this goes forward, then you're going to need to get hold of highways early and make sure you've got a strong communication with them to work out a strategy for mitigation, you know, for that area.
Presumably our highways at County Council here will be aware of this application, depending on what their submissions in. So,
Yes, they called for a better transport assessment. Part of our call, if you like, and some better evidence. We don't think
Sure. I'm just saying, you know, from bitter experience, we've been trying locally to get mitigation from highways and got absolutely nothing from them, which is extremely disappointing. And every time we speak to them, they say, yeah, we'll definitely, we will do this, we'll carry this forward, and nothing.
okay.
Clearly, in this case,
It's frustrating.
Warwickshire were trying to get engaged.
Sure.
And we want to see what that new information is on the website that Councillor James referred to see if it addresses concerns, but we don't know yet.
No, I know. It just, you know, I think we just got to flag up that, you know, that you've got to be talking to the highways for the mitigation and really make sure you've got a strong communication link in there with them.
Thanks, Councillor Warren. Thank you for that. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just three very quick points. Already highlighted about the highways, which I completely concur. And I also noticed on 105 that they also said that they asked for a revised scope that was never received, which kind of highlights some of the issues already raised, which is disappointing. I think the location is actually poor because I think it will impact Daventry in a number of ways we can't foresee right now. And I also think it's too close to Wembley Prison. I think there is some concerns that would need to be raised as well based on that location. And Wembley Prison itself has offenders that are not necessarily ideal to have children quite close by. You'd have to be really concerned about that. So it's very surprising they chose that location. So that was why I wanted to raise it. But thank you.
That's Mr. Councillor Collins. Councillor Lennox.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Well, it's obviously an opportunistic site that somebody's come forward with. I don't need to go into all of the objections to it. I just want to make 2 points. First of all, if you look at the map, there's that nose, which is Barby and Donley Parish, and a little bit of Kilsby and a little bit of Braunston, sticking into Warwickshire. Down to the south, we've got this Lodge Farm. Up in the north, there's a rugby radio station. And in fact, this nose looks as if it's about to be squeezed off from Northamptonshire altogether. They really are being under tremendous pressure from Warwickshire, from Rugby Borough. But the other thing that I wanted to say, I'm not going to go into all of the objections because I think that they're very well made in the response, which I commend. There's been a spontaneous uprising of the people. I've never seen anything like it. The objections and the objectors throughout Rugby Borough is absolutely fantastic. It's not just Lodge Farm, it's almost everything in this document. And I have never seen such a comprehensive and concerted campaign from so many groups objecting to the various elements in this plan.
That's interesting, it reminds me
I
of when
find
the-
it absolutely amazing.
When the Joint Core Strategy kicked off in Northampton, and Northampton is exactly the same name. Huge objections by loads of people. So it's always where you're going to get substantial growth. I think you're going to find that's a natural reaction to that by local people, but they have to be heard. And I always think it's about, we know we have to take growth, both us and Warwickshire, we have targets from government, but we have to make sure we put the growth in the right places to make sure it's sustainable. And this one does seem a bit strange, doesn't it, when you look at it on the map.
Sticks out like a carbon.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Lomax. Can I have Councillor Oswald next?
It reminds me a bit, certain aspects of this sort of Buckton Fields.
Don't get too controversial, Councillor.
Well, in a way, you've got development. Okay, it isn't exactly the same. We know it isn't, but nevertheless, you've got a development that impacts on the outskirts of Northampton, and they're up in arms about it, and they're still up in arms about the thing at the moment. And yet everybody says it's okay, there's no problem, you don't need the northwestern bypass and it's not going to fund it and all that sort of thing. I just wonder whether the traffic people in Warwickshire will come up the same way and say, well, there's no problem with big traffic, because it's the other way around now. This is affecting us.
Button Fields makes more sense than this one does.
Sorry?
Button Fields makes
Yes,
more sense
yes.
than this one does.
This one is Zurich.
Oh, yeah.
It's a strange one right in the middle of nowhere.
Well, it does and it doesn't. I mean, this is in a more stupid place, I agree. But the other one, I think, has a bigger impact on the roads than this one. But this will have a significant impact, but not as large as the Buckton Fields one will do. I still believe that Buckton Fields shouldn't have gone ahead with that northwestern bypass, but yet all the experts said that it could do.
Well, we all thought that would happen at the same time, didn't we?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I keep an eye on this because it's right next to where my ward is, and I was reading in the Rugby Advertiser only this morning that, as Councillor Lomax has already pointed out, there's a lot of local, i.e. Rugby Borough, objections to this. It seems to me that by any planning scheme, this development is not sustainable because it's isolated from all the facilities, but the plan doesn't seem to make a reference to needing to replace those facilities that aren't available. It's also quite horrendous that the 8 parishes that I represent, added together, don't have as many houses as they want to dump here. And just in one concentrated place, which doesn't make sense from the traffic point of view. But I am reminded, it's been pointed out to us about the proximity to county borders of many of our villages and bits of village. 50 years ago, I seem to remember there was a big campaign saying keep Chilsby in Northants because they wanted to snaffle the whole lot. I don't know if that still goes on. But it's an unsustainable development. I think we pointed that out. It's not been thought through. The people are up in arms. Unfortunately, Chairman, as in all the objections that we see, the people don't really understand the planning system. So their objections contain a lot of objections to things which can't be dealt with at this stage. And because of that, there's a danger that their objections may be either overruled or ignored by the Borough Council because they'll say you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's not related to planning reasons.
Indeed.
Not the right planning reasons.
Not the right planning reasons. Let's go to Councillor Earnsworth.
Yes, you said it, Chairman. For me, it looks like a garden village. You know, you have garden town, but that is completely. It's not like Buxton Field because Buxton Field is about Northampton, and you have all the facility here. It looks for me like a garden little town.
Well, like Morton,
yeah. So for me, I'm living not too far away from Moseley. Moseley, for everybody, except the people who live in Moseley, we still find it very odd in this part of our ward near Kettering, because it's a village with not really a lot of life in it, and it has never been, because somehow it has never worked. It's a very odd thing, but maybe that is because it's suddenly built all together so you don't have this organic growth that allow a community to grow together.
That's not very strategic to me.
Sorry?
That's not very strategic to me. That's
No,
what we're
no.
doing.
But mostly it's the same.
Yeah, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, I mean, ashamedly, I shop in, well, no, I am told that I will shop in Sainsbury's in whatever district it is, Dunchurch, in between Dunchurch and Rugby. So we travel through Dunchurch at varying times of the day, and any external, I like the idea of a garden village impacting on Dunchurch itself is absolutely ridiculous.
That's not our area, is it?
No, but the one thing that, or the buzzword back in the day of the old JPU was connectivity.
Yes, that's right.
You know, they could have built on Eastern Way because it had brilliant connectivity with Daventry Town, apart from the fact it was going to put water on it. But, you know, had they had their way, then the blocks of flats would have been built on it. But this doesn't have any connectivity whatsoever. It's not sustainable, and I think Cecile summed it up. It's a garden village. It's totally wrong.
Thanks very much, Councillor Paul. Back to you, Councillor James.
Just very briefly, officers are going to suggest informally that Rugby Borough Council officers extend the consultation period to allow local groups to
That's on the rugby side.
responses.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's just a suggestion, it may not happen, but that's what we're thinking.
Depends who we want. They want some more responses before we go.
Well, really, and this is a much bigger issue than probably they thought. Allocated that now.
So to answer the question, Council, then, we're recommending that we strongly oppose this.
Yes.
That's the question to ask the Council. You're trying to say we've been decided tonight. I'm not sure you take that back, Council.
May I just add a comment that Councillor Lomax and I, up at where we were somewhere north, with the A5 Partnership Group, when we speak about, Northampton highways, we should look at mitigation and this, that and the other. And I think Councillor Lomax and I were absolutely asked that, mouths open when Highways England said, well, from the M6 link down to Toaster, it might take us 20 years to resolve the problem. Well, I'm not fond of highways, as our officers know. The transport and the connectivity is something that we really, really must lean on if given the opportunity.
You could say, Chairman, tongue in cheek, that if you were a Rugby Borough Councillor, let's don't annoy any of our people on the outskirts of Rugby. Let's not annoy some of the people in the villages. Let's stick it right down next to Daventry and annoy them. Because it doesn't affect too many of our people. That's a tongue in cheek comment, but it's probably right.
Yeah.
Anyway, support the advice, Chairman.
Right, we have to support resolve, response. That's the rubbish. Thank you. That concludes this evening's meeting. And Councillor Oswald, it's your contribution.